Yesterday we started discussing the halachot of washing hands before praying. The question is, in what scenario does it create a problem if a person didn't wash his hands? So he says over here, Shulchan Aruch writes, makom metunaf, a dirty place, which we said if a person touches a dirty place, a place that's covered in a covered part of a person's body in general. And if a person scratches his head, so those are the areas. The reason why is because there's sweat over there, and therefore, if a person, let's say, scratched his arm or his leg or touched his shoes, stuff like that, this is all things that requires a person to wash his hands. And the Rama writes, therefore, it would be a asur to touch these places when he's praying or when he's learning. And a person has to even he writes even tzoata an af va'ozen, which means like mucus from the ear, from the nose, right in this area should be done. It should be cleaned with a beged, not directly touching it, because if a person does touch it, he has to wash his hands. Now, if a person is in the middle of learning, if he's osek b'Torah, the Mishnah Berurah writes that a person b'diavad can rely on nikayon ba'alma, just rub his hands. Even if he has water, he can technically get up. But if he's in the middle of learning, he's osek, he can be lenient. And also the Yekhu Yosef writes the same thing, that if a person touches lechat ha'af or the ozen, right, mucus, or touches a part of the body that's covered at the time of the learning, he can just rub his hands on something that will clean it, and he doesn't need to get up and wash his hands. But lechatchila, the best thing is that a person should use, like we said, a hafsakat of a beged, a garment, in order for when a person needs to touch a certain place or touch his shoes, you should use something that he will not have to touch directly, in order to avoid the whole issue. But the evidence, if a person is in the middle of being osek b'Torah and that scenario happens, he doesn't need to get up and go wash his hands. He can just rub his hands against something that will clean it. And the evidence that is in this scenario where you're in the middle of osek b'Torah and there's a bitul Torah idea, you can rely on that. Like the Mishnah Berurah and the Yekhu Yosef say.